And today we'll start with the hands-on training. So where we'll work on the GHG inventory reporting tools together to enter the data, generate the reporting tables, and so on. So before we start on the exercises, so we'll just briefly recap on what we discussed yesterday so that it's you have an overview of what we are going to do today. So this is a hands-on training session. So at the end of the our objective is at the end of the session, the participant would be able to access, they would know how to access the ETF reporting tools, then get familiar with the user interface and create a version, then edit the data in the version, export it, and use Excel to export and import the data and generate the reporting tables, and are also familiar with the interoperability with the IPCC software. And this is just a recap of the slide that I shared yesterday, which talks about the reporting requirements for GHG inventories under the Paris Agreement. So Article 13 says of the Paris Agreement says that each party shall report the national inventory report, and that national inventory report consists of national inventory document, which is the qualitative and descriptive document, and the CRT, which are the set of the Excel tables, and that is the quantitative part of the GHG inventory of a party. And this is again a recap of how the common reporting tables would look like. So these common reporting tables are prepared for reporting the GHG emissions by sources and removals. And the CRTs are a set of Excel workbooks. There are 60 for each reported year. And then the CRT tables, the data are there in the 3 layers. The level 3, which is the sectoral background tables, which are the white and orange cells. And parties will fill the data in this blue and orange cells, which are then aggregated on the sectoral report tables, which are the green tables in the middle. And then they are further summarized in the summary tables and the cross-sectoral tables, which are the blue tables on the right-hand side of the screen. So these are the 3 sets of tables that you would see in the common reporting tables. And these common reporting tables are prepared for the 5 sectors in the CRT. They are energy, IPPU, agriculture, LULUCF, and waste. So the data from this, the data from the sectoral background of each of these sectors is then summarized to the sectoral report tables for each sector, which is then further summarized into the summary, cross-sectoral, and trend tables. And the common reporting tables, these sets of 60 tables, are prepared for each inventory year that you are reporting. So if you are reporting 5 years of the inventory, then these 60 tables are prepared for each of those 5 years. And this is again a recap of how the GHG inventory workflow would, and how the tools to where the tool comes into the picture. So parties would do the estimation of the GHG inventories in their national system or using the IPCC software, and the data from that IPCC software or the national GHG inventory system are reported into the ETF GHG inventory reporting tool. And the ETF GHG inventory reporting tool would help you to generate the common reporting table, CRT, that is then submitted to the UNFCCC. So this is the workflow. So today, in the session today, we'll focus on this part. So we'll focus on the ETF GHG reporting tools. And then at the end of this training session, we will see how you can generate the common reporting tables. And this is a slide that I just wanted to show you, and I'll explain to you later during the presentation. So in the common reporting tables, the categories are organized across the rows. So there are the 3 dimensions. One is the category, years, and the parameters. So the categories in the common reporting tables are in a row basis. They are organized in the rows. And for each year, there is a separate worksheet for each of the years. And the parameters are there on the columns. So, but in the in the GHG inventory reporting tables, we have the same three dimensions, but they are slightly organized in a different way. So here the parameters, activity data, and emissions are organized in a row. Categories, each categories have a separate item in the navigation tree, and the years are organized in the columns. So you will see this in the user interface, so that you can see how the data that you have entered in the GHG inventory reporting tools would map to the common reporting tables. So this is just a recap of the mandate of to develop the ETF reporting tools. I won't talk about this slide, so just for the difference which was covered by Vlad yesterday. And now we are going to do the hands-on demo or hands-on training exercises. And this hands-on training exercises, we are going to do it in a test version of the GHG inventory reporting tools. And there are a few things that we would like to highlight before we do this. We do the exercises on the test version. So the test version of the reporting tool is for parties to try the tools and get familiar with the tools and provide any feedback, technical feedback to the secretariat. And we are still developing these tools, so there might be the data losses that may occur between the releases of this test version. We have already released the tool 3 times, and there will be a final version in June. So please do not use the test version to begin your GHG inventory submission. So this tool is just for you to get familiar. So you can start the tool when we release the final version in June. But until then, the data that you have entered in the GHG inventory reporting tool, you might lose those data. So it is just for you to get familiar. And for this training session, we have provided access to the test version of the GHG inventory reporting tool. I think most of you have received the credential to log into the tool. And if you have not received the credentials, we have some test accounts that we can share with you so that you can log into the application. So you don't have to worry if you have not received the credentials. And during these hands-on exercises, so I'll do the demonstration on the screen with you, and then we'll give you 5-10 minutes for each exercises so that you can do the exercises in those time, and then you can ask us any questions that you have. And then during the exercises, like if there are any questions, please feel free to ask us questions at any point of time. So you don't have to wait until end of the exercises. And this presentation is for you to follow the exercises, but it also has some useful information that you may want to take it home with you when you do the exercises later on, or when you are testing the tool. And there are certain icons that I have used. So there is I, that means there is some useful information to recap on what we discussed yesterday. And there are some exercises contained in this presentation that are in the green color with the gear sign. And there are some slides where I will explain the feature, but they are not, there will not be any exercises for those things. And before we start the tool, so this is the web link for you to access the tool. And there is a QR code on the upper side of the thing. So you can download this presentation using this QR code so that you can so that it will be easy for you to follow the exercises. So you can try logging into the tool, and also you can access this presentation using the QR code. So me and my colleagues would be going around the room to see that you are able to log into the application with the credential that you have.
And I believe the translated version of the presentation is also can be downloaded from the code that is placed on your table. So this exercise presentation can also be downloaded from there, which is, I believe, in the translated into Russian.
So if all of you can try to log in to the application using this web link. And if you have any difficulties in logging into the application, then please raise your hand and then we'll be there to assist you in logging into the application. So I think everyone has the access now to the application. So if you do not have the access yet, my colleagues are here in the room, so they would be able to help you. They would be able to help you, but if you need any assistance, please raise your hand so that they can come to you to your desk to assist you. So these are the exercises that we'll be going to do today. So there are 7 exercises and one is optional to do the IPCC working with the JSON and the interoperability with the IPCC software. So out of these 8, we'll try to complete at least 7 of them, the first 7 of exercises. And this ETF reporting tools login, I think everyone was able to log into the tool. And now you know that the application only allows access to the authorized user. So if you do not have access to the reporting tool for the test version, please request your focal point to nominate you, or please send an email to your focal point to nominate yourself to have access to the test version so that you can already get familiar with the reporting tools so that you can already start working on the tool when you have the final version in June. So this is the slide where I have explained like how you can do it. So I will not go through the slides, and so I'll now switch on to the application to show you how you can create a version and then specify the version setting. And in the slides, so this slide you have already downloaded. In the slides, I have explained what are the things that you can do. And there are some explanation, like there are flexibility provisions that we already explained yesterday, but here I have already summarized the flexibility provisions that the parties can, the developing country parties can use. And out of these 8 flexibility provisions, the bottom 3 that are in the green color, they are already implemented in the ETF reporting tools, and the remaining ones will be completed in the June version of the reporting tools. And before we do the exercises, so let me log into the application again. So most of you already have access to this page. And then if you are using a or Chrome browser or a Edge browser, then I didn't mention it yesterday, but you can use the translate feature of the browser so that in the language, so you can also use the translate feature of the browser so that you can see the instruction of the browser in your language. So you can, I selected here the Russian language. So now you can, that would help you to understand like some of the terminologies or the instruction in the tool. So you can use the translate feature of the browser to translate in the language of your choice. So you can use Russian, like if you are familiar with Russian, you can use the Russian language. So you can see here that the browser has translated the English to the Russian. So that might assist you if you are comfortable working with the Russian language. So, but for now, I'll switch back to English language. So once you are into the application, so you log into the ETF GHG inventory reporting tool. So you log into the tool. So when you log into the tool, go to the inventories tab and then click on create version. So here you'll see this page. So in this page, in order to create a inventory, you click on the create in blank inventory and click on start. And then you select the submission year for which you want to make the submission. So in this case, I'll select 2024 as the submission year. And then I want this to be a default version, meaning that this is a common version, a flag to indicate that it's a common version for all the users working within the party. So I'll create it as a default version. So you can create for any of the submissions. So this is just to show you how it works. But in the exercises, I think I have 2025 in the exercise. But now here I have selected version 0.2024. So in the version 2024, so once you create a version, the first thing you are asked is to select the flexibility provision. So in this case, I want to apply the flexibility, so I select yes for the flexibility provisions. And then, so there are 3 flexibility provisions that you can use in the test version that was released in April. So for now, I'll enable para 58. That means the last reporting year of my inventory is submission year -3. So I am making the submission in 2024. So the last inventory year is 2021 in this case. So if I do not apply the flexibility, then the last reporting year will be 2022. But in this case, I'm applying 2021 as the last reporting year. And para 57 allows me to select the years in the time series that I want to report. So in this case, I do not want to specify the NDC reference year or a period. And then I just want to select few years to report. So I want to report for 1990. I want to report for 95, 2000. So I'm selecting couple of years for the version setting. And then for now, I will not select the para 48. So I want to report all the F gases. I think that I can report all of the F gases. So I will not select any flexibility for the F gases. So then I can move to the next step. And for the energy, you can select if you want to apply the flexibility for the energy sector. But in this case, I will select, I don't want to apply anything. For the IPPU also settings, I do not want to apply anything, but you can also select one of these settings if you want to apply. And then in agriculture, here is asterisk. That means I need to select one of the option. So in this case, I will select option B, meaning I want to specify my country specific cattle categorization. So I have my own category of cattle that I want to specify. So I select option B. And then for the LULUCF sector, I select one of the approach for the harvested wood product. So in this case, I'll select approach A. And then now I'm ready to go to the data entry. So now I have specified the version setting of my inventory, and now I can go to the data entry grades. So we'll do again. So once you create the inventory version, so once you have created the inventory version, yeah. So you do not have to follow the exercise with me now. So we'll have 10 minutes to do the exercises for you to, so you have 10 minutes to do this exercise by yourself, and then we'll come to your desk to help you. So you do not have to follow what I'm doing here in the screen. So you'll have some time to do the exercise by yourself. So, and then we'll come around the desk. So this is just to show you how you move on the exercises. So the first exercise was to create a version and then apply the version settings. So here I say that I want to apply the flexibility provisions. So I selected yes for the applying the flexibility provisions. And then I have selected two flexibility provisions to use in my inventory. So that is para 58. That is for the last year of the time series, which is submission year -3 in this case. And then I have selected para 57. And then I have selected few years to apply this flexibility provision. And then I can do the version setting in the energy sector, but I do not want to do any version setting for the energy sector. I want to specify NCV for each fuels when they appear. So I do not want to specify anything for the energy and anything for the fuels. So I am reporting for all the fuels that are there. So with the numbers or notation keys. So I do not want to specify anything. So I am skipping the version setting in the energy. I am also skipping the version setting in IPPU. And then in agriculture, I have selected option B for the cattle categorization. So I have selected option B. That means I want to have the specification for the country specific cattle in this case. And then in LULUCF, for the harvested wood products, I have selected approach A to report. So that is stock change approach that I want to report my harvested wood products with. So now all of the version setting are complete in this case. So now I can go to the data entry. So I click on go to data entry. So now my version is created. So you can note here that my version 0.43 has now been created. So XYZ is the party name, ISO code for the party name. So in this case, this is a test party. So I have named it as XYZ. CRT is the way I'm preparing a CRT submission for the year 2024, for the submission year 2024. And this is the unique version number, and the status is started. So with this one, so this exercise that we just saw are covered in slide 19 and slide 20 in the presentation. So these are done in slide 19 and slide 20 in the presentation. And now we are with this, we are ready to do the exercise 1. So I'll pause here for another 5-7 minutes so that you can complete this exercise on your computer with you. So here are the steps, how to do the exercises. And then if you are not able to do the exercises, please raise your hand, then we'll pass by and then help you to do the exercises. So now I think everyone was able to create a version and then specify the version setting for their inventory. So now we'll move on to the next exercise. But the next exercise, let me show it to you on the screen, how to do that exercise or how to do that step. And then only you can work on, like, we'll again allot another 5-7 minutes to do the exercises. But while I'm doing the exercises, you can see in the screen how I'm doing it. Then we have another 5-7 minutes to do the exercise together. And then Like the first exercise, we'll be moving around the room to help you, like if you are facing any difficulties. So now I have created an inventory, and now I want to, so in the inventory, as I mentioned yesterday, you can see your version number. You can see that you are online. The data is synchronized and you are online. And then on the left-hand side of the screen, it's a navigation tree which shows you the categories that you are going to report. So now I want to specify some of the categories that I want to report. So the categories that I want to identify is, I select the categories here, and then you can click on this arrow icon to identify the categories that you want to report. And one of the way to add the category is to click on this plus sign and then select the categories that you want to add. So I want to add electricity generation as a category. So I click on this plus sign after expanding. So wherever there is a possibility to add the categories, you will see this plus sign, and not all the categories would have the plus sign. So in this case, I can add the plus sign and then I can add one more. So now I have added two categories, and then if I want to delete one of the categories that I have added by mistake, or if I do not want to report, then I can delete that category by clicking on delete sign. So this is one way of adding the categories in the navigation tree. The other way of adding the categories in the navigation tree is identify a category here in the navigation tree. So I'm again adding one more category in the navigation tree by clicking on this plus sign. And then I am adding 1A, 2G8, other please specify. And then here I can still add one more category here. So to add the category, I again click on the plus sign. But in this case, I can specify my own name. So here I will write the category name as test one, and then I can add that category. And then if I want to add one more category, then I can add. So I can add the category, and then once you have added the category, if you notice some error, you can still modify the category name by clicking on the pencil sign. So this is how you can customize your navigation tree to make the categories ready for reporting, for doing the data entry. So you can customize by clicking on plus sign. You can add the categories. Clicking on the delete sign, you can delete the categories, and then clicking on the arrow sign, you can expand or collapse the navigation tree to identify the node that you want to report for. So I think with this, we can move to the next exercise, which is about customizing the navigation tree and identify the categories to report. So we'll again spend another 5 minutes to do the exercises together. So you can follow the instruction on the screen to customize the navigation tree to add the categories or to identify the categories that you want to report. And if you have any difficulties, please raise your hand so that we'll pass on your desk to help you and assist you. So I think most of us in the room has completed exercise 2, and we're able to add happy cow. So I see happy cow in everyone's screen. So now with that one, we complete exercise 2, and now we move to exercise 3. Now we have in the exercise 2, we have added the categories to report. So we have identified what categories we want to report. And in the next exercise, now we want to start entering the data into the application. So in the next exercise, we'll go into the application and enter the data in the application. And as I mentioned yesterday, so there are 3 ways of entering the data. We have 3 ways of entering the data: the manual input, the partial input. So manual input directly in the application. Another way is to do the data using the Excel. And the third way is using the data using the JSON for connecting with the national system or for importing the data from the IPCC software. So now I'll again switch to the application to show you how you can enter the data. And then we can do the exercise 3 together. And after exercise 3, we'll take a 5-10 minutes break so that you can take some break, and then we'll continue with the exercise 4, 5, 6 before the lunch. So, but before the break, I'll show you how to do the exercise 3. So you can do the exercise 3, and then we can take 10 minutes break, and then we'll be back at 11 a.m. so that and then we can finish the next exercise in the next 1 hour. So now I have customized the navigation tree, and I want to report the data for petroleum refining, and I click on the liquid fuel. So I want to report the data for petroleum refining and the liquid fuels. And as you can see here in the data entry grids, for reporting the data, I have the years in the columns. So here the data the years that I have selected earlier are selected here in the form of the columns. So all the years that I have selected are here in the columns. And these data entry grids, there are white cells. That means you are expected to enter the data in white cells. Either you can do directly a data entry in these white cells, or there are some white cells that have the drop down, so you can select the item from the drop down. And then you can also apply it to subsequent years feature if you want to have the same data for all the years, the same item from the drop down for all the years. And then for the emissions, you again enter some data here. And then as you enter the data for the emissions, then based on the data that I have entered for activity data, fuel consumption, and emissions, my implied emission factor in the green cells is automatically calculated. So again, I enter the data for CSO, and then for N2O, I want to use a notation keys. And as soon as I enter the notation keys, that notation keys goes to all of the blank cells on the right-hand side, so that you need to enter the same notation keys every year. And amount captured is supposed to be a negative number. So if you enter a positive number, then you receive an error message. So if you receive an error message, the data will not be saved. So you have to correct your data in order to be saved. So now I have saved the amount captured as -4, and that calculates the implied emission factor based on the new data. So this is how you can enter the data in the white cells. I can again do the same thing for solid fuels. And then here I can use it's the same way of the way of data entry for each of these nodes is the same. So you will always see the white lines and the green lines and the gray lines. Gray lines, you should not add, and you cannot add anything because they are gray. And then in white cells, you enter the data. And the value in the green cells is automatically calculated. So the data for the liquid fuels and solid fuels, the data, the two data that I have added is now aggregated in petroleum refining. So the data for the liquid fuels and solid fuels, based on the data that I have entered in white cells, they are now aggregated to 1A, 1B, and data from 1A, 1B and 1A, 1A are going to the totals of 1A, 1. So you can see that the 1A, 1 has this data. And since I didn't put anything in 1A, 1A, so the data from 1A, 1B is exactly similar in 1A, 1. So you can see the data, and the data from 1A, 1, 1A, 2, 1A, 3, 1A, 4 goes to 1A. And then from 1A, 1B, 1C, it goes to 1. So the data is based on the data that you have entered at the lowest node. All of the data at the upper node are automatically calculated in the green cells. So now we can go to exercise 3, which is about entering the data directly in the tool without using Excel or anything. You just enter the number directly in the application. So we'll spend 5 minutes for this exercise and then another 10 minutes. Once you complete this exercise, we have 10 minutes break and then we resume for exercise 4. I think many of us in the room have completed exercise 3. So now we can move to exercise 4, which is about Excel data entry in the application using the Excel. Since many of us are familiar with working with the Excel, so in the reporting tools, you can import the data from the Excel file also. So if you have your data in the Excel file, then you would be able to transfer the data to the application through Excel file instead of typing the numbers, all the numbers. Like you may have noticed, to type the numbers, you can do that in the application, but it's very cumbersome to do that for every data entry grades for every year. So if you are reporting for 20, 30 years, then entering the data on each cell manually is almost impossible. So maybe you can use Excel or a JSON. So if the next exercise that we are going to show is how you can do that using the Excel file. So we were working on 1A, 1B petroleum refining. So here we were doing the data entry for liquid fuels and solid fuels directly in the application. But for the gaseous fuels, I would like to do the data entry using Excel. So in order to do that, I can export what I see in this screen to an Excel file so that you will have the same layout in the Excel file. So I have this option of export. So you can only export this particular line 1A, 1B petroleum refining through this current grid as Excel, or you can export this petroleum refining and all of its child nodes. There are 6 of these fuels, this petroleum refining plus these 6 fuels. I can export with this second option. So in this case, I'll select second option. And now my Excel file is exported. And then in the Excel file, so this is the Excel file that I have just exported, and the Excel file name and in the Excel file name, you can see that because you might be downloading the multiple Excel files. So from here, you can know that the Excel file for XYZ CRT 2024 I exported this Excel file from version 0.43, and this is the data entry grid, and this is the date and time when I exported this Excel file. And with this, so all of the categories for the petroleum refining that you see in the navigation tree, now they are coming here as a worksheet, separate worksheet. So you can see the data that I have entered for liquid fuels, it's appearing as a worksheet. For solid fuels, it is also appearing as a worksheet. And for gaseous fuels, I hadn't entered anything. So this Excel file is blank for gaseous fuels. So for this one, I can enter the data directly here in the Excel. And there is no drop down items in the Excel. So for the Excel, if you enter the item that is expected from the drop down, then this item would be imported and in the Excel. So I can import all of this data here. So I have entered the data for multiple years in Excel. And then N2 emissions is supposed to be emission is a positive number. So if I try to enter a negative number here, then this number I can enter that in Excel, but this number will not be imported to the tool. So because we cannot do the negative number for the Excel. And then for the implied emission factor, it's not calculated in the Excel file. So in the implied emission factor, it's a green cell. So it's not calculated in the Excel, but it will be calculated when you import this file to the application. And in the documentation box, I write some word. So now, assuming that I have entered all of the data in the Excel, so I save this Excel file. And then when you are working on this Excel file, you should not add any columns or delete any rows. Otherwise, you will not be able to import. So you should only add or remove the data on the white cells in the Excel. So there are these white cells. So you can only do that for these white cells, and you should not do anything for these green cells and the gray cells. So now I'm saving this file. And I go back to the application. So for the gaseous fuel, right now, I do not have any data. I have the data for the gaseous fuel in Excel. So now I'll import the data. To import the data, you click on these three dot options, and then you click on import Excel file. So now I'm importing the file back to the application. And now you can see that the data that I have entered in the Excel are now imported for the gaseous fuel into the application. And for the N2O emissions, I had entered a negative number. That means that number was not imported. So I can go and check in the log file. So there's a link to the log file. So you can go to the log file and check. And in the log file, you can see that all of these numbers were imported. You can see that all of these numbers were imported. And then -3 that I entered for N2O was not imported because, and it is saying that this number was not imported because only positive number could be imported to that cell. So that's why this number was not included. So you can go to the log file and see what was the reason for not importing. And then most of the values, the correct values have now been imported. So you can see this log file and it says that import is partially successful. So you can always read the log file, and then this data is still not saved because it is still a preview mode. So you can reject if you see that, okay, I do not want to import this data, you can click on cancel, then the data won't be saved. But if you are happy with this data, you can click on save, and the data would be now saved, and the data is now synchronized. And the data is now synchronized. So all of these data that I have entered in Excel for gaseous fuel is now imported to the application. And now with this, so next two slides, it talks about this Excel data export and import. And now with this, we can go to exercise 4, which is about working with Excel export and import.
Через полчаса. Потерпите. Не кофе-брейк, сразу обед будет, поэтому.
So we can spend another 5 minutes to do this exercise again to work in the Excel. And then after this one, we have 2-3 exercises to build on this one. So we can still continue working on this inventory. So now this exercise is about Excel export and import. And when you are importing the data in the Excel file, you have to enter the data in this gaseous fuel, not for the gaseous fuel here. This is a blue cell. So that means this is a calculated cells. So green and blue are the calculated cells. So you cannot enter the data in the calculated cell. So this should be calculated when you import the data. So if you want to import the data, you have to enter the data in the white cells. So you have to enter the data in the gaseous fuels here. If you are exporting from 1A, 1B, then you need to enter the data in the gaseous fuel worksheet for 1A, 1B. Now I think we can move on to the next exercise. So the next exercise is about editing the version setting of your inventory. So there might be the case when you realize that, okay, you want to edit something on the version setting for the inventory that you have created. And to do the version setting, so these are the version settings that are applicable for you. So you can always go back to the version setting of your inventory and change the version setting. So on the version that you are working, you can always go back and change the version setting. So if you want to do the version setting, you note your version number. It's a for the 2024, it says version 0.43. So I go to the inventory tab, and then I identified version 0.43. That should usually be on the top. The last version that you are working, it should be at the top of the list. So 0.43 is the version that I'm working. And if I want to edit the version setting, then I click on this gear icon, and then I have this option to edit the version setting. I click on edit version setting. And now my version setting, I should be able to edit the version setting. So now in this case, I'll go and select the version setting. And then now I want to apply the flexibility for reporting the F gases. So I want to apply flexibility for reporting F gases. So I select this one, and then I select NF3. So I want to apply the flexibility for reporting NF3. So I select NF3 in the version setting. And then I can also edit any other version setting. So I can also edit the version setting for the IPPU or any of the sectors. So I edit the version setting for IPPU if I want. So if I want to specify that SF6 is not occurring in my country, so I can write SF6 as NO. So I have SF6 as NO. So I have this SF6 as NO. And then I also want to add SF6 and NF3 to be added as a child nodes in all of the categories for IPPU. So if I do that, then I have done my editing of my version setting. And now I'm going to the data entry grid again. And now it is saying me what are the changes that I have done. So if I am happy with this change, so I can save and go to the data entry. So in the version setting, I have selected NO for the SF6 and FX flexibility. I have applied flexibility for NF3. So NF3 should have FX and SF6 should have NO. So now all of those settings that I have applied was for IPPU sector. So I can select the IPPU sector. And now you can see that everywhere SF6 and NF3 have been added. So SF6, I have said that SF6 has to be added everywhere. So SF6 is added everywhere. So now you can see here that SF6 is populated with NO because I have selected NO as the notation keys for SF6, and for NF3, I had applied flexibility. So FX is populated everywhere in the data entry grids. So this is how you can edit the version setting to modify the data also. So you can do that when you are creating an inventory, or later on you can also access the version setting and modify these changes in the version setting. So here you can see SF6 is everywhere. SF6 is appearing. It's NO because I selected NO, and NF3 is with FX. So this is how you can edit the version setting. And with this one, now we can do the exercise 5, which is about editing of the version setting. So we'll again spend another 5 minutes to do this exercise. So now I think Mustaf has completed the editing of the version setting. So now I want to, so there are still a couple of exercises, but I also have the instruction. So we are almost running out of time. So there are some exercises that are still there in the slide. You can always go back to the presentation and you can follow these exercises from the slide. But there is still one exercise that I want to do together with you, which is about generating of the reporting tables. So that we'll do it together, and the rest of the exercises you can do it by following the presentation, or if you want to know more, then I'm here until tomorrow, so we can find a time to do the exercise together. And before the lunch break, I want us to do this exercise on downloading the common reporting table. So all of this data entry that we have done, the CRT is the format for reporting the data. So this tool helps you to generate the common reporting tables, CRT. So in this one, so in order to generate the CRT, I have to go to the reporting tables tab here on the reporting tables tab, and then I select the years for which I want to export the data. So I select the years for which I want to export the data, and then I select the sectors for which I want the reporting table. So in this case, I want to have the reporting tables for all the sectors. So I select all the sectors, and then all the tables are also selected by default for me. I can also select individual tables, and then I click on apply. And now I should be able to download the reporting tables. So you can see that there are 2 reporting tables that I can download them as an individual file or as a zip file to contain all of these files. So I'm downloading for now. I'm just downloading one file. So now the tool has generated the reporting tables with the data that I had entered. So I had entered the data for the gaseous fuels a while ago. This was the data that I had entered for the gaseous fuel, for the fuel consumption, and for the emissions. So now this data is reflected on the reporting tables. So the application has generated all of these reporting tables. You can see here. So all of these reporting tables, so this is generated by the application. Since I have not entered any of the data there, so it's not updated, but I had entered the data for SF6. So this SF6 data is populated here as NO. So which I had entered NO, and then you can see here that all of the data, the remaining tables, I hadn't entered the data. That's why these all tables are blank. But once you enter the data for all the sectors, all of the tables, then these reporting tables would be filled with the data that you have entered. In the exercises today, we just did some few data entry. So these reporting tables would still look empty because we do not have the sufficient data here. So if you have all the data, then these reporting tables would be filled with the data. So as a last exercise, we'll do this, you can see how you can export the reporting tables and see if you can see the data that you have exported.